Rajani Thindiath. I'm here to talk about the importance of being diverse. Why is this important to me? My childhood inspiration was the first page in our school calendar. With the national pledge, there were these lines on the pledge. I love my country. I am proud of its rich and varied heritage. And honestly, that made me feel very proud because we are such a melting pot of cultures, of traditions, of communities, of languages, of festivals. More than that, when we watch movies and videos of the time, I observed that all of it talked about integration. There was this video, the lines of the song went, Mile Sur Mera Tumhara, which in Hindi means, may our melodies come together. Because that is what integration and diversity means, that so many thoughts come together and bring out something new. Why is diversity important? To bring in new thoughts. For example, if you had only like-minded people as your friends, who would tell you when you were wrong or suggest something new to you? Diversity is important for innovation. For example, there is a reason humans have traveled from Africa and populated the rest of the world for the diversity of experiences. We are already this melting pot of thousands of years of experiences and growth. That is what we humans do. We come across new experiences, we adapt, we learn, we survive, and we grow. So it was natural that this thought filtered through my work as editor and writer. My contribution was to get children thinking about diversity since they are receptive to new ideas. We thought about equalizing gender roles. Why is this important? Our earliest exposure is through stories, movies, and so on. In most of the content that we consume, we see the male as strong and brave, and the female is generally seen as helpless or as someone who needs to be helped. But what stops a woman from being a villain, from being a plumber, or even from being a hero or a cop? They don't have to be helpless and wait for someone to help them when they have the brains and the power to help themselves. Then I remembered that pronouns are as important. This is such a simple, basic thing, and still it affects our worldview. This is something I also learned as a student of psychology, that these kind of things, pronouns, train our brain, they condition us to ignore the other gender when we only use he in our textbooks, in our articles, in our news reports. So when we write, for example, in my work in Tinkle, we use he as much as she, or we use a they. We also make sure to use gender neutral words. Human made, business person, or even invent new words no matter how awkward they seem. These are conscious choices because language is an invented form of communication. We brought in strong female characters because when you see strong characters, you feel inspired by them. You aspire to be them. So we had Aisha from Super Weirdos. Super Weirdos is a collective of superheroes with funny powers. You also had Mapui from Wingstar. Mapui, as her alter ego Wingstar, is a superhero and a crime fighter. We have Nadia in Noise. Noise stands for Nilgiri Orchid International School, and it is a boarding school series where Nadia is seen as spunky, as strong, as intelligent as the boys in her class. Next, we had Bala from the Yog Yodhas. Yog Yodhas is the series of warriors who fight evil with the help of their spirit creatures that they invoke with yoga poses. So Bala is one of the Yog Yodhas who fights along with her brother Bir. We showcase regions, festivals, and cultures of India by setting stories across every state of the country. When something becomes familiar, it is not seen as the other or alien. For example, we know our friends, they are different from us, but they inspire us and we learn from them. So the same thing applies to these things also. Even the characters are set in diverse settings. A lot of the characters are set in Bombay, the metro, also called Mumbai, but now characters are visibly set or have ancestry from different places in the country. Aisha, who I mentioned earlier from the Super Weirdos, her full name is Aisha Kurian Dar. She is a Kashmiri Malayali with a father who is a Kashmiri and a mother who is a Malayali from Bangalore. Next, we have Mapui Colin from the Wingstar Collective. She is from Aizwa. Aizwa is a fictionalized take of Aizol in Mizoram. So when I had gone to the Northeast, this is something I observed. A lot of people in the Northeast feel separated from what they call the mainland. Similarly, when we see people from the Northeast in the country, we see them as other. I thought that this needs to change. And how would you change it? By making it more visible, by making it more normal. Next, we have Noise, what I mentioned earlier, a boarding school series that is set in the Nilgiri hills of Tamil Nadu. After that, we have the Yog Yodhas, which is set on this beautiful bamboo island in Kerala, Kuruva Island. It's a fictionalized take of what is actually called Kuruva Dweep. Now, it's not just in Kerala. The ancient abode of the Yogyodhas, the Yogashray, is set in the Himalayas, which will come in the stories that will follow. We have all experienced lockdown in this pandemic. We have all stayed home. The homogeneous nature of being in one place got boring so soon. We wanted to explore. Why do we want to explore? Because we want diverse experiences. That is part of our nature. We crave for it. And that is what makes us grow and evolve. So that is the reason behind all these changes that I have been trying to input and trying to get children to think. We also showcase a range of skin tone for characters. What happens is when we consume entertainment, media, we consume information that is from China, from Korea, from Americas, from Europe, and largely we have this hang up about light skin tones without realizing most of the world is in shades of browns. And there is nothing wrong in this shade of brown. It's just in something that we think, wrongly think. For example, you may like a red rose or a yellow rose or even a black rose. But would you do it to the exclusion of other colors? Would you say, I love red roses, but I hate yellow roses? That sounds absurd. The diversity of thought that a person brings doesn't change because of their skin color, their gender, or their disability. We have also normalized characters with disabilities and their abilities by making them visible and heard. For example, haven't you noticed as kids while playing in the playground or when you're out in school, we often make fun of people who have poor eyesight when they wear specs, who have poor hearing, who wear braces, and so on. The disabilities do not take away from the diversity of experience and thought that they bring. So we made it an effort to make sure our stories normalize this, make them visible, make them protagonists as people who did absolutely normal things and nothing stopped them from doing what they wanted. For example, there was the story Wheels Up, where there was a pizza thief and there was this girl, a very spunky girl on a wheelchair who stopped those thieves. The response to that from children was humongous because they were inspired by this girl. They saw her as someone powerful. For them, the wheelchair didn't cease to be something as to be seen as helpless. It became something that she owned. It became a part of her as much as her eyes or ears or teeth. There was another story called Not Again, where the character Noor had leg braces. Didn't impact the story. It was a part of him. And he was this naughty kid who always was clumsy and broke things. Uh, him having braces didn't add to it or take away from it. It was part of him. Another story was Quiet Surprise, where this child Boboy had a stutter. How often have we seen in movies stutters, stammers being made fun of without thinking what it does to the confidence of that person? So that person doesn't change. Their ideas do not change. So that was the thought behind having this child in this particular story with this really good artistic skill, which the other children recognized and appreciated. And lastly, the series that I mentioned, the boarding school series Noise, had a protagonist wearing braces, being embarrassed about it, and then accepting it. The same series also had this smart exchange student, Hemi, who was on a wheelchair. I have written this high fantasy manuscript that I'm now pitching. This is the subject matter for the manuscript about diversity, about examining what is the reverse point of diversity, ethnocentrism. Basically, how do nations and cultures work when they are homogenized, when the young are taught to fear the other who's different from them, and how it stifles individual growth and how it stifles the society. Eventually, it obviously leads to a clash of civilizations because you fear the other. Yes, very much like the world we live in today. Do think about it. And that's the end of my talk. Thank you for your time.